What a start to this show. Hello and welcome to the Last Word on Spurs. That's on the bloopers. Don't worry, that's in the green room. Don't worry about it. Welcome to the Last Word on Spurs. Thank you so much for joining us for post-match reaction to Tottenham Hotspur 3, Eintracht Frankfurt 2. I'm so lost for words. I had to put myself on mute, such as the nature of that last 20 minutes of that game. We're all trying to get over what looked like it was going to be a really, really kind of smooth Tottenham win. And in typical Tottenham fashion, just an absolutely chaotic, crazy 20 minutes of a game finishing us off quite literally. I'm joined by, look, they're regulars now on Last Word on Spurs. What you've got here, you've got our Champions League panel you're going to be seeing and a lot of our late night shows that are taking you through, of course, through to the World Cup break and even more. Lots of people loving that intro. Once again, Zayas, you have to accept my apologies on that. Introducing the panel from left to right tonight. Obviously, you've got myself and then we've got the wonderful Sammy Powell back on Last Word on Spurs. Sam, how are you, my friend?
For the first time, pretty speechless, Ricky, to be fair. I was going mental in those final 10 minutes. Absolutely crazy. But just what have we witnessed there tonight? It was crazy. When the first goal went in, I thought it's all down to Kulusevski not being there. That was the first thought of most Spurs fans, I think. And then magic from Sonny and Kane. Oh, my God. Unbelievable. The link up. I'm speechless. I'm so happy. Brilliant. Happy to be here as well, pal.
Absolutely, mate. We've got lots to talk about. What a crazy, crazy game. It looked like it was going to be going simple for I say, a good 75 minutes. And then the real Spurs showed up to give us a real fright night before Halloween peaks its head before the end of the month. Joining us back on the show, I don't know if I'm going to let him into a little secret where Dazza is right now, but he's 2 hours ahead of us. And fair to say, this man's commitment to Last Word on Spurs cannot be questioned. We've got the wonderful actor Darren Hartman back on Last Word on Spurs, back for Champions League. You know what that means? It's a Spurs win at home. Dazza, how are you, mate?
I am good. Listen, people, I'm very excited to be here. I'm hoping that me and the Wi-Fi stay good friends. I am 2 hours ahead of you guys, but Tottenham kept me on that crazy train, and I'm glad that we're all here safely. I knew we was winning. I never doubted it. Some of you may have.
Don't worry, there's lots of marriages on the rocks tonight. Even in the comments here, I can see lots of people staying up, peeking their head with what's going to be a very late night Last Word on Spurs. Thank you so much, as always, for all your support. Already got about 400 to 500 of you live across all of our platforms here, listening, watching us back after Spurs do get the win they need in the Champions League. Join us making his Champions League debut on the Last Word on Spurs. How has this only happened yet? Blame Tottenham, not him. We've got the wonderful Matty Hayes, runs a superb YouTube channel. Matty, how are you?
I'm good. I got the Champions League badge in and all for the Champions League debut. I had to do it, and but what a night to do it as well. You know, it was one of those games that we didn't want to end until all of a sudden all we wanted was for it to end. But look, like you said, typical Tottenham fashion. I had my dad, who's a Liverpool fan, in the other room screaming every 5 minutes for another goal. So it was an interesting experience. But look, with Tottenham, as bad as it gets at times, we wouldn't change it for the world. And it's a pleasure to be on with you three gents tonight.
Oh, mate, listen, love to have you back on Last Word on Spurs, especially for a Champions League night. Now, before we do get into the crux of what we've come onto this show, a quick reminder, if you do need a reminder, that we're absolutely delighted to be sponsored by the Beavertown Corner Pin. That is the Beavertown bang opposite our South Stand at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. We are excited to be getting back down there for some amazing screenings to come. The next screening, of course, is this weekend coming. We've got Everton, of course, at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. But after that, it's just a short trip, or you say long trip down to Old Trafford, Manchester United, the next home and away fixture. And you can get your tickets right now by going to beavertownbrewery.co.uk/pages/corner-pin for tickets right now. Still available for that. And I know Beavertown was absolutely rammed tonight. And I have to apologise because I know many people were saying they couldn't get in there because of how rammed it was. So again, apologies for that. Never easy. That pub is getting busier and busier every single week. And it's harsh to say, but I mean, it's just a case of just got to turn up early down there. It's just absolutely crazy, especially on Champions League nights. I mean, yeah, stadium is, like I say, rocking at times. Frankfurt definitely made their presence felt tonight. I know many already commenting on the atmosphere in the stadium. So, like I say, we'll let you be the judge of that. But listen, let's get into it. Daz, let's start with you. I feel conscious that we're on a 2 year. I'm about to say a 2 year time ahead. It probably feels to you like a 2 year time ahead rather than us. But it is a big win for Tottenham in Group D as we secure a 3-2 victory against Frankfurt. Listen, in true typical Spurs fashion, we made it hard for ourselves but in the closing stages. But Conte's men, Spurs, get the job done. And we now know we're in a position where a Spurs win versus Sporting will take us through to the knockout stages. Thoughts?
Happy days. Happy days. We did the job we needed to do today. I know you mentioned, Rick, you said about doing it, the old Spurs came back. Or no, you said the real Spurs came back. I'm not going to have that. I'm not going to have that. That was not the real Spurs. The real Spurs were that first half performance. That was the real Kane, the real Son, the real movement that we've been looking forward to. And that's how we should be playing our Champions League night. 3-1 at halftime, looking beautiful, cruise control, happy place to be. And I think as Spurs...
We've lost that. Well, we might lose Darren. Darren looks like he might be coming back. Almost the crazy 20 minutes there of what we saw with Tottenham at the end there. Daz, feel free to carry on.
Listen, it's mental. But I think what I'm really impressed by is what Conte were doing. We're trying to manage the squad with those substitutions. And I'm happy. I'm very happy. We've done what we needed to do. We're top of the group. Got to love our Spurs. And if I do disappear, I will come back. That's the magic of where I am.
The magician himself. You know, this guy, you know about the skills he's got in that locker. I tell you, he should be out there balling it right now. I tell you, quite literally, he's balling it somewhere else. We'll let you be the judge of that when you find out what he's doing. The wonderful Darren Hartman there, bringing us over to Last Word on Spurs. Sammy, let's come over to you. Listen, as we said, the visitors, they made that a really, really nervy finale after Aladou's header could have really changed the course of the evening. But Sonny's double, Kane's first Champions League goal for over 3 years, earned Spurs a vital win. As I mentioned, we're now top of Group D, and we're in a position where we can now qualify for the last 16 with victory against Lisbon. All in our hands, Sam. Is that what we wanted?
Well, yeah, and I think we will qualify. But when you play a team like Frankfurt, Ricky, that is when you do get exposed because they can break fast, very, very fast. And to be fair, we looked helpless for the first 15 minutes. They had a much better game. Obviously, there was mistakes at the back. I do think the refereeing was off. I hate talking about referees. I always feel like it's a cop-out, especially when you've lost. But I think the ref was all over the place in the first half with his decisions. But yeah, we came out fighting, didn't we? You know, I think the exposure, Ricky, gives the players on the bench a chance. And that's what I want to see. You know, we are probably going to touch on it. You know, Spence, where's he? Locked up in a basement with Dr. Dre? I don't know. But the bottom line is, you know, there's players that deserve a chance. And I think they're going to get them when you see a few mistakes like that at the back. So even though I'm absolutely buzzing from the win, I always like to critique the fact that how we could tighten up and how you get exposed.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think that will be the concerning thing. Again, many people commented on the fact that, listen, it's nice to see Spurs at points in that game played some really nice free-flowing football and scoring goals, but there is still that concern at the way in which we handled those last 20 minutes. And again, a concern that Spurs could have capitulated to really end up drawing a game where at one point they looked in absolute total control. Matty, I know I can always rely on you to give us a balance of where Spurs are at the moment. I mean, listen, I think we've got to use that word relief, Matty, for the way we actually hanged on there in terms of the stoppage time, because ultimately Frankfurt really did threaten a comeback. Kane, just so unlike Kane, skying that penalty right at the end. But it is ultimately, Matty, the result that all matters for Tottenham. It's a 3-2 win, coupled with the fact that Marseille surprisingly winning in Lisbon. So Spurs, I keep mentioning, are in that position now where beating Sporting in 2 weeks' time secures their passage. Overall, Matty, happy or still elements of concern for you?
Absolutely delighted. I mean, when it comes to the group stage of the Champions League, the group stage of any competition, at the end of the day, you need to get the 3 points. And look, it wasn't done in the way that we would have liked it. You know, I think that game was, for me, very reminiscent of the Leicester game, and that we started slowly. A couple of errors led to the opening goal, but when we went 1-0 down, that kicked us into gear, kicked us into action, and we looked really, really good going forward. And it's that kind of link-up play and the ability to break down Frankfurt almost every time we got forward. That's what's been lacking this season. I think it's what's been fueling the calls from the fans to bring in an attacking midfielder. But when those three up top, whether it's Richarlison or Kulusevski on the right-hand side, and with the two centre midfielders and wing-backs getting involved, when they're flowing, everything is fine, and we do create chances. It could have been 5 before half-time, with Trapp making some good saves from Son and Romero. And I think in the second half, I was speaking to some people on Twitter, I think there's a few in the comments disappointed about the performance. I don't think there was a performance issue there. I think we took the foot off the gas, especially when they went down to 10 men, despite the best efforts of the referee not to give him the red card. And it was just a mistake from, was it Royal or Sanchez that gave Frankfurt a way back into the game. But ultimately, we were comfortable for the vast majority of that game. And we'd all like to be sitting here having won that game 5-6-7-1. But when we have a Premier League game in less than 72 hours' time, you can't really afford to go and play that energetic, intense football for 90 minutes when ultimately you shouldn't really have had to do that. And the point you make about Sporting is the most important point for me, because they got 2 red cards tonight. Pedro Gonçalves will be out for the game against us as well. They're off the back of 2 really bad defeats against Marseille, having been in control of the group. It's going to be a difficult one for them, and it's back at home where we've won 9 games in a row now. So for me, at the end of this month, I get to be there, which I'm really excited for. We're going to beat Sporting. We're going to get out of the group, and that's all that matters.
And let's not forget, Ricky, sorry to butt in there, the cause it was for, at the start, in memory of our fitness coach, that just adds that panache to it, doesn't it? You never want to see an empty seat with a kit on it and some flowers, and it's been a pretty sad week, hasn't it? And to get the win, it means more than just the win, doesn't it? I think for not just for the players and the fans, but obviously for Antonio Conte, who's so close.
It's a good point you mentioned there, Sam, because I think we have to give immense credit to the Tottenham team, the coaching staff, the players, everybody surrounding that club. I mean, we can't forget, it was at the backstage of last week. These guys were all at Jean-Pierre's funeral. And then fast forward, we're in a situation where Spurs have come for a really, really tricky week with 6 points out of a possible 6, Brighton and this game. And again, it's achieving 2 really consequential and vital wins when you consider what emotionally the group have had to go through over the course of the last week. To lose someone, a beloved staff member and a colleague that has obviously extremely impressed them over the course of the last, since he's been there. I mean, he's been pivotal in the fact of helping Spurs secure Champions League football. Harry Kane is at the fittest he's ever looked. And then again tonight, to show that, I think, real desire to come back into a game. There's obviously loads of questions which we will get into in terms of the performance itself. But I mean, Dal, to come back around here if I can, Daz. Spurs were brilliant in that first half. Second half, dominant but sloppy. We failed to kill the game off. I mean, it's a game where really you look at it, we came a lot closer to not winning it than we ever should have done, really. I mean, do you have a concern, Darren, that later on in the competition, if we do perform like that in that last 20 minutes, we are going to leave ourselves open to being picked off by a much better, superior team than Frankfurt?
I think today what we've got to also look into, rather than really kind of look at that performance, is the game management that Conte was trying to show us. He took off Dyer. He took off Højbjerg. He was resting these players because, as Matty quite rightly said, we've got a game every 72 hours right now. It's a mental schedule. And I think what he was trying to do there was save legs. The game should have been comfortable at that point. 3-1 up. Even with them getting a goal, we should not have lost that game at that point. And we didn't. So we got over the line. That's what we needed to do. And I think what Conte is doing is also giving skip minutes. He's trying to build people in, give other people rest. We never ever thought Kane would sky a penalty. That there was a moment I never thought I'd ever see in my lifetime. So that was mental to see. Bryan Gil getting confidence in himself and having that little mazy run, which he needs that lift. And I think rather than see the negatives and go, oh, we nearly lost the game, remember, we didn't lose the game. And what we also did was we got a little rest for Dyer, a little rest for Højbjerg. We started to get minutes in other players. Moura came back in, which was great to see. We love Lucas. We love seeing him in their Champions League shirt. Good to see him get minutes again. And that's what we really got to focus on. Then Bentancur as well came off. There's other things that we're looking at. And that's what I'm going to focus on. Conte is now looking at the season. And if we can keep playing the first half like we did today and be ahead like that, we can give other players rest and we will continue to build on this season. Because we're in a great place. Top of the Champions League, third in the Premier League, battering everyone at home. We're looking good. I'm in a good place. It's good.
Gosh, Daz, are you sure you're in a good place? Quite literally. Are you in a good place there?
Yeah, your Wi-Fi is saying otherwise, that you're not in a good place. I'll be honest. I'm looking down at you. You look like a gift.
He's fighting me.
It's quite literally fighting the heart, man. He's literally using the heart and still to be battling on quite. And we can still hear him loud and clearly, despite the movement of. Look, almost reminds you of the VAR this season. Darren's Wi-Fi connection at the moment, just how poor it is to get to a decision that's right. But we are going to come over to Sammy. Sammy, I'm just going to read you just some of our listener questions that we've had in. We've had over 20 that's come in since the game. And, it's interesting to kind of get a take on, again, how fans are feeling right now. Elliot Saraf says, what is it about us always wanting to self-implode? It's like in our DNA to give in and spurs things up. But overall, a solid performance. We've got a number of more here. This is from Richie THFC, who says, as soon as the leaders left the pitch, Højbjerg, Dyer and Bentancur, we looked all over the place. Never dispute how important those players are to this team. Simon Braddock says Conte marched down the tunnel on that final whistle. Think he might be about to lay into some of them for the last 10 minutes of that performance. Shame as it was a really good 75-minute performance from Spurs. And John Labby says, any fans that wonder why Conte doesn't use some of the players in the squad, look at that second half. The most important thing tonight was the 3 points, but ultimately overall, I think what's screaming out from these comments, as Rebecca as well puts here, Højbjerg subbed and we go off the rails. Coincidence, I think not. Højbjerg, a real captain's mentality leader for this team. Lots of comments alluding to the fact that, Sam, you take off the leaders in this team and quite simply Spurs went off the rails. Do you agree with those comments, Sam?
Wow, well, I mean, firstly, there's a lot of comments there to catch up on, to be honest, Ricky. But, I have to say, even though there's a bit of negativity about the players that aren't performing, because obviously it's all, everybody's saying Bentancur, Højbjerg, let me get this right, Bentancur, Højbjerg, Son and Kane, they gave everything. I disagree. I think everybody gave everything. And do you know, if it wasn't for the Frankfurt keeper, I think he had an unbelievable game. It would have been a completely different story. What I will say is mixing the squad up, and I mentioned it just on the opening there, I think he's going to start becoming so crucial to us. And, I'm not questioning Conte. In fact, the comment about him being angry going down the tunnel, I nearly swore then, sorry. I bloody love that. I mean, I love that. He's going down the tunnel furious at the players because of that last part of the game. So he should be. We were sat here with our hearts in our mouths. And to be honest with you, apart from Brian Hill, who looked like he was going to, he was throwing his body at everything, who's got real potential, to be fair. I don't think he's ready. I think there's a few players that are going to get completely schooled if we come up against PSG in the Champions League. But you know what? I think there's more positives than we're giving the team credit for. Harry Kane, I mean, I know we're going to come on to it, but I can't even hold my breath any longer. My Lord, Harry Kane. That's all I've got to say. He's unbelievable. He's the best playmaker I've ever seen. I'm 40 years old now. He's the best playmaker I've ever seen in a Spurs shirt. That first time pass and where he knows where players are going. And everybody says it's Kane and Son, it's Kane and Son. It ain't. Kane knows where they all are. He knows where they're going. He's going.
I've got to say, you see what happens, Sammy? You start to about Harry Kane and look how improved Darren's Wi-Fi connection becomes.
He's ready.
He's ready beaming. Now. He's beaming now. He's beaming.
He's literally, if he goes any more backwards on that Wi-Fi, it'll just be teletext. It's so bad. Jesus. Honestly, you might as well just do hand gestures. We hear
700
you.
plus. What's teletext right there? What's bamboozle? What are you doing to him, Sam?
I must admit, you put a comment up there. I think it was from Spurs Marco or whatever, and he highlighted the players that made the difference. And it's good to see that everybody is seeing the difference that Højbjerg and Bentancur are making, because we always talk about the goals, the strike. Højbjerg could have possibly had a goal himself, tonight. He was unbelievable. That cross in as well to Son. I mean, I'm sure we're going to talk about that. But
absolutely,
these players are making a complete difference to the squad. And do you know what, Ricky? I'm going to say it publicly. I don't think that Højbjerg is the best player but do you know the last couple of months he's proven to be absolutely priceless to Tottenham, and that is because he's giving everything for Antonio Conte. I always say it every time I'm on the show. Antonio Conte is getting 110% out of some players that might not necessarily belong at Tottenham. And that it's just groundbreaking to see. They're not getting benched. They're not getting swerved for favourites. It's mental. What Conte is doing at Tottenham has got me pretty flabbergasted. And I'm relatively vocal. I am shocked at what he is doing. I couldn't want a better man in charge of our club. It's phenomenal.
Yeah. Matty, just so I can come round to you before I go back to Darren, lots of people picking up on the fact tonight, again, as I mentioned, that there's a concern of that last 20 minutes in there, Matt. Do you have any concerns that when you start losing the leaders on that pitch, that ultimately we do seem to fall away fairly quickly? Do you think the depth for that squad is good enough? Hill came off the bench, and to be fair to him, was a good cameo. But we saw, obviously, Bentancur go off, Højbjerg go off, Richarlison go off. And you could just see that ultimately taking off some of those key players to Spurs, the pivotal players, when you look at the depth of the squad, it's questionable as to whether we have got enough in there. What do you think, Matt, for you, based on that last 20 minutes?
I think it's a vicious circle because for me, the quality is definitely there, but quality is irrelevant if you're only playing 15 minutes here against Frankfurt, and then 4 weeks down the line, you're playing 20 minutes against another team. And it's a tough one for Antonio Conte because with the way that we've been playing this season, performances haven't quite been there, but we've been grinding out the results. Those are the games where you can't give Spence 10 minutes. So it's not the game where you can try and integrate players into the squad. And tonight, again, like I was saying earlier, it seemed like one of those days where you could do that because everything was under our control. We were a man up, 2 goals up, everything was fine. That's a good time to get Skip some minutes after his injury, to get Bissouma a bit more exposed to a different system. Having played in the 3-5-2 previously, get him in that 3-4-3, see how he does. And Bissouma's passing was a little bit sloppy, but none of us and none of the 700 people watching are going to try and say that Bissouma isn't good enough to play in that team. He, in the past couple of seasons, especially considering where he's been playing, is in the top 5, top 10 midfielders in the Premier League. The quality is there. Skip the same last season. But when you don't have those minutes, it's just so hard to, first of all, find your own feet, find your own form, but also getting used to what could be a new system for these players. Definitely a new system for Bissouma. Getting used to playing around these new players when you have new signings this season, like Longley, getting into that squad and trying to learn the way they play. And the commentator made a point during the game with how Conte needs to know the strengths and weaknesses of his players. But as a player on that pitch, you need to know the strengths and weaknesses of the players around you as well. And that's something that will come with time. So look, hopefully if we can get back to the level of performances we were having last season, and in those games, even if you want to just specify home games against bottom half of the table, maybe that's the time when we can start bringing these players on, because they definitely do have the ability. And that was, for me, the best thing about the summer window, was that we weren't, look what Manchester United did. They went out and they made 1 or 2 signings and they splashed the cash on Anthony, who, look, has turned out to be a good signing, but there's still gaping holes in that team and questionable depth. Whereas we managed to solidify a lot of positions that needed to be solidified instead of just aimlessly going out and spending an insane amount of cash on a player that could have flopped. It was very clever business that we did, but it doesn't stop there. You need to work on that. You need to make that business worth it. And for Tottenham, we're just not quite in a situation yet where that can happen. And then when you do take Højbjerg off, or if Son does get injured, or if Kane is suspended, then you start to question, are we still going to be able to grind out those results? And on the basis of tonight, there's definitely questions there. But with there's 4 or 5 weeks till the World Cup, and we've got games every 3 or 4 days, we're going to start to see these players getting into the team. And I think that's when we really get our answers to where this squad actually is and how capable we are of pushing Chelsea, Arsenal, Liverpool, Man United right to the end of the season.
Yeah, that's Matty, I totally agree with you on that. This is going to be the test now, isn't it? As Darren said earlier, 72 hours in between games. Darren, I'll tell you, don't I blame out on last word on Spurs. I blame out at 72 hours. I know the schedule's coming and I'm absolutely terrified by it. As should our panelists be. No pressure, boys. Conte has spoken after the game already, so we're going to bring you his post-match reaction right now. Conte said after the game, we scored 3 times and Trapp was the best player. That is the positive aspect from the game. Now, Trapp obviously is the goalkeeper, by the way. The negative aspect is the final third, and it has to be a big lesson for everybody. The game finishes when the referee whistles 3 times. Conte went on to say, we conceded, they scored, then we missed the penalty. When we missed the penalty, I admit I was a bit scared because I thought everything can happen. So Conte already there, making the point that he was very, very apprehensive going into that last couple of minutes, just how Spurs nearly did throw that game away. But he went on to finally say that the final part we have to take away is a big lesson. Everybody, myself and the players, everybody can see the game ended. Maybe also the fans. It was important to win this game for us. Now we are leading the group and everything is in our hands. So what we are going to do, we're going to whiz back over to Darren and we're going to talk about the lineup for this evening. We had a couple of super chats there, and Jordan on the screen says, my only criticism is that Kane should have been rested instead of Richie. But again, Kane, despite missing the penalty, of course, tonight, got his goal. He still remains Spurs' leading scorer in the Champions League. Darren, as always, lots and lots of, I would say, conjecture when you see a Spurs starting lineup. We've all been there. We all wait for it to break on Twitter. That lineup, we're going to bring it on the watching audience's screen right now. We've got over 700 plus of you watching us live. Again, thank you so much for all of your incredible support for Last Word on Spurs. It is straight after the games. We know lots of people coming on, watching straight after being at the game. So thanks so much for your support. We hope you get home safely. That's to come round to you. Team there. So Conte went back to the 3-4-3 as he made 3 changes ahead of the game. We saw Clement Longley coming in for Ben Davies with that back 3. We saw Yves Bissouma returning to the bench with Oliver Skip And the wing-backs, Ryan Sessegnon keeping his place in the team over Ivan Perisic, who Conte has back to find his best form as he recovers from his recent injury. Matt Doherty was back on the bench, and preferred was Emerson Royale, who I know, again, for some, never going to please everybody. Emerson Royale back in the team, but Conte, it's his man at the moment. And then finally, Richarlison returning to the side with Heung-min Son on the opposite flank, Harry Kane in the line, and Conte confirmed pre-game, of course, that Dejan Kulusevski wasn't quite ready for this one. Hopefully ready for Everton, whilst Lucas Moura was back on the bench. So that team, reading left to right, we had Lloris in goal with the back of 3 or 5, if you want to compare it to Romero, Dyer, Longley, Emerson, Sessegnon, and you're at midfielder Bentancur, Højbjerg, with that forward line of Richarlison, Kane and Son, and a bench of Forster, Sanchez, Davis, Perisic, Doherty, Spence, White, Basuma, Skip, Sarr, Lucas Hill. Darren, overall, happy with that team?
Yeah, I was, to be honest. And if I'm really, really honest, I expected that team. I expected that lineup and going back to that formation because Conte likes it, he trusts it, and he trusts the personnel in it. And I think playing Emerson, I know some people's Marmite or a lot of people's Marmite, knowing that he can't play in the league right now, it makes sense to play him in this game because Conte still likes him and still values him. And he knows that Doherty now will be able to play at the weekend. I know we're all going, when is Spence going to get his moment? When is this going to happen? I think it shows with what happened today with the substitutions. We have to trust Conte's process. He is blooding people in. He's breaking down the system. Spurs play a very, very specific way. And I think Conte has really been drafting that in. You watch the players' movement. I think the highlight about Kane knowing where everyone is, it's that thing that could you play so well together and the drills have been drilled into everyone. Everyone knows the movement. And if certain new players haven't got that down yet, he's not really going to play them. So this 11 is what I expected it to be. And just to go back on the substitutions, when you look at that screen right now, and those of you who can't see it, when you look at the starting 11, when you think of the substitutions, that went right down the middle of our team, from Richarlison to Højbjerg, Bentancur, Davis. That's where all the substitutions were. When you lose your leaders right down your spine, any side in the world is going to have a problem because theoretically, we're never going to lose all of them to injury. God forbid. So what we had there was substitutions where he tried to rest that area, give everyone a break. I'm going to say something controversial about resting Kane. I'm on this theory of right now, Tottenham has to be the priority. And people are saying rest him because they're thinking about the World Cup. Right now, if Conte wants to keep him on and Kane is happy with his fitness, let's keep him there because that's what I'm prioritizing. Tottenham right now. Tottenham first. We deal with the national side when we get to Christmas. So that 11, I'm very, very happy with it.
You know, that's interesting. Coming over to you, Sam. This is actually the second time Conte's picked that exact 11. The only other time was the 2-1 win over Fulham, which was on the 3rd of September. Frankfurt actually just made the one change from the team that drew 0-0 with Spurs last week, and that was Jesper Lindstrom in for Angus Knopf. I mean, overall for you, Sam, was you happy with that team when you saw it? Because again, at the moment, you know, it's very hard to pick a team that everybody seems to be favouring at the moment. Is that the 11 that you would have gone with, Sam?
To be fair, yeah. I mean, you always go, oh no, Perisic, don't you? But and Perisic is good to start for us, and then bring on some energy because he is a natural leader. But you know, Richarlison, I saw somebody's comment about Richarlison a bit like Dele Alli. He isn't. Dele Alli actually had a much better touch than Richarlison. But what Richarlison does is give 120% to everything. He chases every ball down. Dele Alli was relatively lazy, as we know from the manager's feedback over the years. But Richarlison, he gives absolutely everything.
Oh,
Royale
worked so hard tonight.
He works so hard. He's so underrated. And if he sticks 2 headers in, like he did do at the start of the campaign, then he's getting different praise. But Royale, I must admit, it's almost like people are waiting for him to slip up. And he does slip up. You know, he has got loose passes. He is probably the weak link, but he wants to be there. We all know that he's invested into trying to make himself better with everything, his personal training and technology and the likes of and scouts. But he isn't all there, Ricky. And I'm wondering now whether, and there has been a lot of talk about it, but I mean, talking about the bench, by the way, we've got somebody that got us into the Champions League final sitting on the bench. That's how good our depth is. But I'm wondering whether we can put Moura at that position And would he be good at blocking? Would he be as good at getting forward with the pace? You know, it is a debate for Tottenham fans, isn't it? I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, again, lots of people can comment on the fact tonight that, you know, the way Højbjerg raided down that right-hand side, maybe he should be a contender for the right wing-back slot.
No. He is perfect. When I see Bentancur and Højbjerg...
I mean, listen, I joke when I say that. I mean, I do joke.
I know you do.
Sam, I joke when I say that. But
when I see him sat there, Bentancur, Højbjerg, I go, brilliant. Because you've got somebody that wants to dive into people, give everything, has creative balls and gets forward. And you've got a magician. I call him the ninja, as you know I do, because nobody ever gives him... You don't even see what he's doing. No. For some reason, you don't see what he's doing. He's doing everything. He's amazing, Bentancur. So love those two in there. Obviously, the debate is when Kulusevski's back, the Richarlison factor. It's so hard to get that marriage because I don't think Richarlison could have done any more tonight. I don't know what Kulusevski would have brought to the table, but again, I've made it very clear that I think he's probably the best signing for Tottenham Hotspur since Heung-min Son. And I don't say that lightly. Kulusevski has got the best to come. So there's always the debate is, can you have all four of them on? Can you have Bentancur and Højbjerg feeding them? Is that messy? You know, you don't know. So, yeah, I was happy with the team, but I'm always quite conscious when I see Royal Dyer. He's been a rock for us, but for some reason, I get a little bit of butterflies in my stomach when he starts because he's either absolutely mustard or makes a mistake. Unfortunately, he did make a mistake tonight. So, you know, all in all, mate, happy. And there's a reason, just to end on that, Ricky, you say that Conte's picked that team. He's picked it and we've won with that team. So he knows what he's doing.
You know what's interesting, Matty? At the moment, it does feel like Conte with the formations, it's almost, again, some fans feel that, you know, Spurs need to be a bit more flexible, maybe in terms of in-game, and then, you know, maybe looking to change it up based on the opposition. I mean, are you fairly happy, Matt, when you saw that team tonight? Is that what you'd roughly been expecting, or would you like to see Conte maybe flex his muscles a bit more in terms of that lineup?
To be honest, I didn't really know what to expect because we, of course, switched to the 3-5-2 against Brighton. It worked. We got the 3 points. And I kind of expected it to continue tonight. Maybe the 3-5-2 is our let's not lose formation, and the 3-4-3 could be our let's go and win the game formation. You know, the 3-5-2 could just be a little bit more pragmatic. But there's a few kind of little intricacies that I was kind of expecting a 3-5-2 to be better suited to. And the main one was Daichi Kamada, the left winger for Frankfurt. And look, everybody who's ever watched him knows he likes to drift inside and pick up those little spaces that are vacated by or the kind of in between the lines. And if you're playing a 3-5-2, you can say to Basuma, if he's sitting at the base of that, you pick up that space where Kamada is going to want to be. You know, if you just sit on him, if you follow him around, we still get to have that rigid four of Bentancur, Højbjerg, and the two wingers either side to keep that line solid. But at least you have someone there picking up Kamada when he does get into that space. And when you don't do that, when you stick to that 3-4-3, which becomes a 5-4-1 in defense, there's no one really who is properly suited to getting into that space and picking him up there. And then you run the risk of someone being dragged out of position. It could be Romero having to step up in that aggressive kind of manner that he likes to do. But the worst case scenario is that Emerson Royal gets dragged inside, and then Lens has so much space down that left-hand side to ping balls into the box. And I think what worked well for us, I don't know if it was exactly a way that we went about trying to keep Kamada quiet, of course, after he scored. But what worked in the end was the fact that when we had that possession, if Frankfurt are sitting deep, unless they have a lot of the ball, that positioning for Kamada doesn't really come into effect too much. Because on the break, as Sammy was saying, they're so good going forward, but that doesn't really, it's not a factor for Kamada picking up that space when we are the ones dominating the possession. And
well, I'll say, Matt, there, if you don't mind me cutting in, though, I think if we had 5 straight through the centre there, the way Frankfurt play, they're so underrated, that they're so fast on that break. I believe that would have been a wrong choice. I think Conte got it bang on tonight in terms of the formation. I just think you got that big line through the middle and you got that press going forward. They're so fast coming out from the back and playing out from the back from short spaces and getting that ball over, like you say. So, you know, I did think he got it bob on tonight.
Like you said,
go on, Matt. Go on, carry on there. Go for it. Sorry.
Yeah, like you said, Sammy, the fact that we won the game. we can sit here and debate what we thought at the time. Ultimately, if we get the 3 points, Conte made the right decision. But I think that they kind of showed bits of it on BT Sport before the game as why the three attackers for us against the three centre-backs of Frankfurt works really well. And they really honed in on Richarlison kind of dragging that left centre-back out of position, which is Ndika, a player that we were interested over the summer. Getting him out of the way of Kane and Son is always an advantage. But what I bring it back to is everyone always questions how we have such a good record against Manchester City. And the reason for me that we do is that they play effectively that three at the back when their left back steps up into midfield and the right back kind of tucks in. And the reason is if you have Harry Kane dropping deep, he drags that centre back out with him. And then all of a sudden you have the pace on either side running beyond those two centre backs into the space. And that extra half a second they get from those wide centre backs having to turn to match that run, when you're as quick as our attackers are, that's pivotal. And that got us in behind Frankfurt so many times today. Now the alternative is when you have someone like Longley who can really ping it into the feet of Harry Kane, and all he needs to do is flick it around the corner, and Son is running at the centre back then, and he has that added pace from getting a 10-15 yard run at him. I think that's what Conte prioritised, and it worked because it wasn't a fantastic defensive performance. We just outscored Frankfurt. So I think
what a brilliant analysis that is.
Wasn't it?
Thank you.
That is quite literally the post-match analysis that we're after on Last Word on Spurs.
Well, there you go. There you have it.
There you go.
With you more, mate, with that.
I must say, we've got over 700 of you plus watching us live on Last Word on Spurs, straight after, like I say, watching Spurs beat Frankfurt by 3-2. Crazy chaotic finish. We are going to go for our first break of the show for our listeners and audio. Taking into that break, you are going to hear from Antonio Conte, who gives you his thoughts on the back of an absolutely crazy chaotic game. And like I say, we're going to be getting into the story of the game next year on Last Word on Spurs. You are joined by the wonderful Sammy Powell, the brilliant Matty Hayes making his Champions League debut. And it's the regulars on here, Last Word on Spurs. We've got the wonderful Darren Hartman, the Heart Man, on Last Word on Spurs. We won't discuss where he's at. And where's Darren? We're not confirmed where Darren is. Darren's here with us on Last Word on Spurs, and that's all that matters. And Daz, we're going to kick off.
We know he's definitely not getting his hair and teeth done. That's one thing that we know. Because look at those bad boys, Jesus.
We are going to come back around and Daz here on Last Word on Spurs. Daz, we've got to talk about the opening section of this game. An absolute mess really to begin with. Frankfurt taking the lead, and it was a calamity from Spurs of all their own making. Where we heard that before on Last Word on Spurs. Overhit pass from Romero into Dyer. Awful touch from Dyer himself. Frankfurt then swarm in. Lloris palms it, and Kamada can't help but tap it in. Probably the worst possible start to a game. How concerned when you had that as the opening goal? That's
Yeah, it wasn't the best start always. And one thing about Tottenham is we do have that in us. That is in our back four. That is in our DNA, and that's something that we are trying to eradicate. We'll make our own problem, and that's what we did with that first goal. It was a combination of a lot of things that culminated in that problem. And yeah, there it was. What can you do? What can you say? Matty, you made such great points. I want to add another one onto that. And I think when you look at us defensively, we don't look solid with the 11 we had. And I think that's where Kulusevski and Emerson Royal have such a connection. And I think people really underestimate when partnerships work. Kulusevski does so much for Emerson Royal to make him a better player. Their understanding of how they work that flank really does look good. And if you want to look back, when Kulusevski hasn't been there, Emerson has looked really, really bad. And that's what people need to look at. And Conte is looking at connections. And I think what you saw in that first goal was everyone not quite being on their game, not fully being switched on. I think maybe emotions of this week were still in that first 15 minutes for Spurs. There was a lot going on. The crowd were immense tonight. Big round of applause to the crowd tonight. That was beautiful. Sounded great, looked great. Anyone who was there, you probably went home in no voice. That was beautiful. And I think once we got going after that, it was a happy place. But that first ring, Rick, that was a Tottenham classic. And I don't want any more Tottenham classics.
No, we don't. We most certainly don't. I mean, it's a really loose touch from Dyer. Visitors got in the box. To be fair to Lloris, he did bravely dive at the ball, but play back to Kamada, made no mistake by firing home. You know, Sam, many people picking up on the fact that opening first 15, 20 minutes was really, really sloppy from Spurs. And it did feel, and it does feel with Tottenham that, you know, we talk about the fact that the way Spurs approach games, if you start fast, then you really do, like I say, have the opportunity to really blow the opposition away. I just wonder, Sam, for you, is there still that concern in there by the way Spurs are starting games and by the nature of how that first goal came around and was conceded? Are you concerned, Sam, still about the way Spurs are starting games?
Yeah, sometimes. You know, we've been pretty infamous for having a great second half when Conte first joined Tottenham. You know, I'm sure I've said this many times when I've been on the show, but we were, I think, at one point wondering what he was injecting into them at half time because they were a completely different squad. I just want to add just onto that. Why am I here, Ricky, with analysis like Matt and Dazzy's there? That is like, I should be listening to the show, not on it.
Hold on, Sam, can I blend in with the background with you on a second?
Tell you what, guys, absolutely mustard analysis. I love it. You're a lot more technical with it than I am. But what I will say is, yeah, I was really disappointed with the start, but almost expected it. I mean, I've had one of those days as well. I went to pick some kebabs up. They weren't ready. I got home. I was trying to cut the top off an ice pop and my scissors broke. And I thought Spurs are going to go 1-0 down here straight away. And they did. And I thought, I knew it was coming. You know, I've been having a bad day and it turned out well. But
then he sees that first goal.
You know, and then they conceded that. And even little Arthur went, oh, things come in threes. I wanted to strangle him as much as I love him. I thought he's so right. And then they did. And then, and you know, I must admit the start is so pivotal. It's almost like a kick up the backside for Tottenham, if I may say so myself, when they go down. Yeah, it doesn't do us any harm going down, does it? It doesn't do us any harm.
We responded so well. We responded ever so well, didn't we?
They respond really well, and you know you're lucky for the players when we go back to the Højbjergs and the Bentancurs that they're there in those moments, because I've seen Manchester United this year, Leicester City. I know we don't put them all in the same bracket, but when they go down, the players go down. There's like one player holding them up: Leicester, James Maddison; Manchester United, Anthony. I really feel like we've got some key players that really club together to make it happen, especially Harry Kane. And sometimes there has been the odd occasion when Harry Kane does go missing just a little bit when, you know, if it goes 2-0 down, and do you know the reason for that, Ricky? Is not because he's not putting the effort in. What happens is everyone goes, Kane had a bad game. Oh, we never saw Kane. Wrong. When Spurs go 2-0 down, what Harry Kane does is goes deep. And he tries to protect the squad because he's got the skill to be able to do it. So, you know, there's certain players that really dig deep for Tottenham when they go down. I was impressed with the comeback anyway.
I know this is only going to apply to our watching audience on YouTube. There's about 700, 800 of you watching us live. Obviously, Darren's gone to point to Sammy there. He's pointed to the curtain thinking, what is going to come out behind there? I thought we were going to see some kind of horror movie then. So I'm just going to grab Darren from behind. You only get this on live Last Word on Spurs late night editions, I tell you. There's no difference to these boys that make the late night editions, I tell you, on Last Word on Spurs. Matty, let's come around to you. Listen, it was a really rare Eric Dyer error to begin with because he was under no real pressure, took that heavy touch. Romero pass as well didn't exactly do him any favours. Lloris did his best to come to the rescue, but to be fair to Frankfurt, they really engineered the goal really well for the tap-in. But then from nowhere, Matty, Spurs are level, and it is almost becoming that just classic Kane-Son link-up. Lovely ball from Kane into that path for Son. He raced and went around the goalkeeper to slot it in, and he pointed to the heavens as almost, I'm sure, thoughts there with Jean Piero. Johnny Duncan lost his life earlier last week. But ultimately, Matty, a much-needed response, right, of how Spurs responded very quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I think Frankfurt played into our hands with that one, because I don't know if you saw the pre-game interview that Oliver Glasner, the Frankfurt manager, did on BT Sport, but he said every Tottenham Champions League game so far this season, said that they've started slow in the first half, and you could see that was absolutely in the forefront of the Frankfurt players' minds. They were going out, they were pressing. It was just a complacent moment from Eric Dyer. Took his eye off the ball, but Frankfurt, they were going, they were pressing. I forget the right winger's name, was it Jenstrom or something? Anyway, he was there, he pressed.
Yep.
That's the one. And they got it back from that point, but they just sat back then. It's like they were happy they got their one goal. They thought they could just sit back and kind of keep us at bay, because we hadn't scored in 2 Champions League games, and it was just a typical Tottenham goal. It was a typical goal that we would have scored last season. You know, that just quick ball out from the fence into the feet, almost like the third goal we scored against Arsenal. Sanchez that time zipped into Kane. This time was Emerson into Kane. Son got the jump on the right centre back. He was in behind, and look, we've seen this story 100 times. If Son is in 1-on-1, the ball goes into the bottom corner. It's as simple as that. brilliantly taken from Son. And again, that's just exactly the reaction we need. Like I mentioned earlier in the show, it was exactly like that response in the game against Leicester. We were right back in that game, firing to get back on level terms. And when we did that, again, kind of like Sammy said, it kind of does us good going down, because when we get that equaliser, we have that momentum with us. And Frankfurt, for the rest of that first half, never really seemed as though they were going to be able to take that momentum back off us. And when the Son and Kane, those combinations, we know there's been so many, but they often seem to come in twos. You know, like Sammy's ice pop disaster coming in threes. You know, with them, it just comes in twos. And it was
how important, Matt, though, is I just saw a comment there about some lazy passing. I don't think that's the case. Sorry to disagree with you, fellow listener, but I don't think that's the case. Lazy passing. I think that the problem is control. And the first touch on a ball is always an issue with Tottenham. Well, I mean, we conceded because of Eric Dyer's, but let's not use that as an example. Richarlison's had a really heavy first touch. Emerson probably got the heaviest touch in the game. It's like a lead balloon. But when Son was having a dry period, it was all down to his touch, his first touch. You go, he's normally got that. He's normally controlling that, and he's in. And tonight it was, well, let's not talk about the first touch on the volley. Wow, we are.
I promise. Yeah, I mean, unbelievable, Sam. Wasn't it? I promise you, we are going to come on to it, because it was an absolutely wonderful finish. It really, really was. But we have to, like I say, Daz, we'll come back around to you, because now, of course, with obviously the Kane touch, the swivel, the look, the through ball, Son starting at home, they make it look ever so easy. And now that's Son's first. That was Son at the time. It was Son's first Champions League goal of the season, which he added to the second one, and they're his first two since October 2019. I still can't quite believe it's that long ago, but it just felt, even him, a little bit, Darren, if you agree, just looked like he kind of relaxed a little bit after that first goal. It just felt like the shackles were off him. He looked relieved that he got the goal, and you could just see that by the way in the nature he took the absolutely world-class second goal of the game for him. Agree? Yeah?
Totally agree. I think this Son...
Go on, we got you.
Am I back in the room, gentlemen?
You're back in the room. We've got you.
Good. I think with Son, it all boils down to what Sammy was saying about when he's not in the game and he's not playing well, the touch is off and it's not fluid, and he's not the best man that he can be. What we saw today, as we all witnessed, when he gets that goal, everything changes in his performance. He just, it's like he goes into like a different mode. And once he's in that mode, he's unplayable. Kane knows he's going to make the run. He knows he's getting the touch. He, as Matty said, we as fans go, it's going in the bottom corner. All the guarantees kick back in because he's in that mode. And he's phenomenal when he's there. And he just needs some time just to relax. And I think Son has been playing under a lot of pressure, self-imposed pressure, I must add. And I think now he's relaxed in the Champions League. He's relaxing in the league. Him and Kane are enjoying their football again. And I think that is the beautiful thing to watch, watching them smile, watching them enjoy the play. And I think it was gorgeous today because I think you mentioned it, Sammy, about in the second half, what Conte does, we don't know, but Spurs are a different side. It was great to go in winning, we went behind, we turned it around in that first half, and now we're cooking with gas. And that was good to see. And that relationship up front, there's a beautiful foursome being built. I don't think we'll ever see all four run at once, but that dynamic is looking pretty up there, and I'm getting happier. I'm getting happier by the minute.
Absolutely, and the connection's improving by the minute as well, Darren. You'll be glad to hear.
I've had a bad word with reception.
Daz, you won't notice until you watch this back. But that was the longest nod I've ever seen, quite frankly, from somebody on Last Word on Spurs. It's a record nod. I thought, are there words coming out at one point? But they did eventually come out, like I say, and we did. we did
Last
actually get there.
Spurs family, forgive me. This is not how it works. I'm abroad. I'm literally turning everyone's phones off. I'm sending messages to the high street. Turn off the lights. Turn everything off. Give me the power. I need the power. I'm working on it.
It's so funny. It's so superb. I mean, listen, Premier Hotspur says, "Hello, evening, guys. Fantastic panel, Rick. I don't know what Spurs fans are moaning about at times. We are third in the league. We're top of our group. Yes. Give all your heads a wobble." I mean, it is hard because I do understand there is that concern about the way we are starting games. There's that concern about the way we ended the game as well. But I mean, overall, when you look at Spurs' position, it is really, really hard to nitpick. And then when you look at the fact, coming over to you, Sam, at the moment that Kane and Son now combined together, they've created 50 goals. So that's a goal or assist between them. I mean, so many records out there for those two generally, as Matty touched upon earlier. But just phenomenal again, just the work rate of those two, the way they've got that almost telepathic partnership. Is there anything more you can say, Sam, just in relation to Heung-min Son and Harry Kane's almost unbelievable connection together, Sam?
No, it's psychic, and I've never seen anything like it, if I'm being honest. And the great thing about Son and Kane linking up is that the football world, no matter who they are, and believe you me, I've heard Arsenal fans as bitter and blinkered as they are, saying you don't see a pairing like that. You just don't. But also, it's what are they bringing to the other players? Their play in terms of what Kane is putting in, the passes from Sonny, the space that he creates that completely opens up the field, which I think Richarlison was the leader of tonight. But Sonny always does it. He's on his bike. Do you know what? I think the commentators even say it every game. Son's going to be on his bike now. And he is. He's down there, honestly, like absolute shit off a shovel. And for a fact that he's going to get on his toes and get down right in front of the goal. It's magical to watch as a Spurs fan, and that's taking nothing away from Jermaine Defoe and Peter Crouch and Klinsmann and Sheringham and the likes of. But this is something magical that we're witnessing. It's exceptional. They know where each other are, don't they? They know. Yep. I must admit, it is Kane, isn't it, that's playing the ball into Sonny more than it is Sonny to Kane. But other than that, what you need to recognise is the space that Sonny is creating for Kane. So he always makes a run. He draws, if it's not one, it's definitely two players away from where Harry Kane is to make sure he's got access. It's magical.
No, it really is. No, I have to agree. Matty, you've got a request there for a review of Frankfurt's right back when you've got some time next time for you, Matty, on your channel there. But ultimately, like I say, we did then see Spurs take the lead. Now, Kane embarked, Matty, on a really, really good, superb run. He beat Jibril Sow. He then got past Christian Jakic, who then bundled him to the floor. At the time, it looked like a clear penalty. I couldn't quite understand how the referee then had to actually go and review it on the VAR, to be honest with you. But referee Carlos Delgado Grande waved the play on. The VAR time to go and check it. He did check it. He gave the spot kick. Still can't understand it because there shouldn't have been any doubt about it. But, Matty, overall, Kane hammering the penalty to Trapp's left. And 28 minutes in, Spurs have turned the game on its head. They're 2-1 up.
I think it's perfect timing to talk about the penalty because the right back is the lad who gave it away. But yeah, no, it was. It's not what you expect of Harry Kane to go on the run that he did. That intricate, tight little touches, getting in around a few players, but he got on the ball. He seemed determined, and it just worked out for him. And it was such a clumsy challenge from Jakic, and I don't understand. The commentator even made the point in live, like the referee had the perfect view to it. He was standing right behind the challenge. He can see Jakic leaning in with the shoulder as well as putting a leg across. It was a stonewall penalty. And I think the reaction of the Spurs players said it all. They kind of went over complaining at first, but then realized, well, we're going to get it anyway. So let's not get ourselves booked for dissent or something here. It's going to be given. And then you go to the monitor and the ref had to look at it 5 or 6, 7 or 8 times. It was a really, really strange decision. I think it was a good summary of the referee's performance overall. I'm sure we'll get onto the red card that nearly never was and the red card that actually never was later in the game as well. But yeah, it was strange. But look, when Harry Kane puts the ball on the spot, I think every penalty you get, there's always that moment when you're thinking, oh, but what if he does miss it? And I just remember he's already missed one this season against Forest. He's not going to do it again. I had that confidence, and he went the opposite way to what he usually does, like you said, to the goalkeeper's left instead of nestling it in that top corner. But even though the keeper went the right way, as is usually the case when Kane hits a penalty on target, it ends up in the back of the net. And again, from that moment, it just further solidified that momentum that we had, and Frankfurt just weren't quite able to get in control of the ball and bring that game back to Spurs like they had done in the opening 15 minutes. And again, for the rest of that first half, just comfortable, I think is the best word for it. Yeah, I thought it was quite ironic, Dad, to come around to you because it was a great comeback from Spurs. It didn't really like scoring in Germany when you think about it. And then they had 2 in the opening 28 minutes to turn the game on its head. But ultimately, Darren, Kane yet again, the inspiration behind that goal, really, really pivotal to that. And for him now, that was his 9th goal of the season. And Kane's first goal of the Champions League since 2019. And you could just tell you really enjoyed that, Darren, the goal itself.
Absolutely enjoyed it, and rightly so, because he's been putting in the effort, he's been putting in the work, and he deserves those goals. And the goals are going to keep coming. And I think also when you look at the season Kane's having, the numbers he's put out already, if we didn't have the beast at Man City, the beast it is, this called the Heartbot today, he's definitely a robot over in Man City. That's a real robot. And I think if he wasn't around, we'll be highlighting Kane already and saying how great a season he's had. The goals already are flying in. He looks a different player. He looks confident. And I think that's being overshadowed. So I had no doubt, as Matty quite rightly said, when the ball was put on the spot, I had no doubt it was going to end up in the back of the net, because that's what Kane does until at the end. And I think that was great to have. And I think just the confidence that was in the team at that point, it was great to see. It was great for us fans to kind of breathe. Everyone could open the beer properly and have a good drink, because we were looking good at that point. And yeah, happy days all round from this part of the world, your part of the world. Everyone was celebrating that.
Yep. Dad, do you know what's funny? We can hear you absolutely crystal clear, and we get glinting moments where we get this almost normal HD connection. We go from 4K to standard HD, but keep going because we're loving it, and I know the listeners are loving it as well. So many comments here for Darren. Bearing in mind what we're going through here tonight, absolutely loving it. The wonderful Darren Hartman. I'd say busy as always, making time for Last Word on Spurs, and we appreciate him for that. Sam, let's come around to you. Listen, Harry Kane now the only player to have scored more European goals for Spurs than Heung-min Son. And we have to touch upon it, as you mentioned, Sammy, as you had down that lovely glass of white wine there, because I think you've got to now talk about Sonny's second goal, because it really was a work of art. Actually, brilliant Spurs goal. Richarlison finding Højbjerg, drove in the area, cut back for Sonny to volley home with such lovely technique with the left foot. I mean, Sammy, you were glorifying it over it earlier. Anything more you can add to that? Because it was just a wonderful finish from Sonny, wasn't it?
Well, put it this way: it's a good job. You can only see the top half of me and not my pants on the video on the live tonight. I tell you what, it was absolutely spectacular. And you know what? It must be Spurs that have done this to me, Ricky. Is that you look and think he's going to swing for that and miss it. And I'm not being negative. You do know with Daz, I am one of the most positive people about Tottenham, but you just think he's going to hit that first time, and he's got to. And he does, and the result is what it is. And yeah, obviously I was relatively excited, but no,
I can't work out if King Honnold's commented where he says small sample size, Adrian, is relation to you, or if he's talking about something completely different in this Last Word on Spurs chat. I've got no idea whatsoever.
Yeah, it definitely ain't relating to me. That was a large sample that was exposed there. Let me tell you, what a connection. And Matt's like that. Look at Matt shaking his head, thinking, "I can't have this guy."
Yeah, I won't be back.
I won't be back. Sorry, Matt. Told you to be prepared. On a serious note, the connection was something of beauty, and you know what? He deserves that, because he's got that in his locker. How good is it to see Heung-min Son back? And you know, they touched on it on BT Sport. Was it Peter Crouch who was on? And they went, who doesn't smile when Sonny's smiling? And I'd like to find those people and lock them away, because I tell you what, he's so infectious. He deserves everything he's put into football and everything he gets out of football. Absolutely electric goal. Loved it.
Oh, I'll tell you, I know people are watching this right now. The comments are just, there's some absolutely wonderful comments. I wish I could read them all now. There's just so many, but we have got also a show to try and review it. I did say Last Word on Spurs late night editions, they just seem to bring a different flavour, both on the panel and in the comments. Lots of love as always. I mean, like I say, the show kind of takes its own kind of guide and you run with it through there. I mean, try and host this. I'll tell you what, I'm struggling, and I've done doing this the last 5 years. Daz, let's come in, Matty, then we'll go to Daz. Matty, listen, it was an absolutely perfect left-footed volley, as we spoke about, from Sonny, but Højbjerg, we have to talk about Pierre Højbjerg for this goal, because he went down the right, he's driving forward with the ball, he's skipping past defenders, he's chipping and inviting cross. I mean, Højbjerg really, I mean, the making of that goal, which we are going to come on to in a bit more detail, but Sonny again. Any more words, Matt, you can put we can put rightly after the watershed, but also legal? What Sammy's putting us through at the moment.
I don't think I can live up to what Sammy just said, and I'm partly glad that I
wouldn't ask you to either, Matty. I wouldn't ask you to either.
No, it was just it was a masterclass, and I think as much as any third goal would have kind of started the celebrations, I think that the sheer class of that goal just tipped us over the edge a little bit more in the kind of the celebratory. You're relaxing. Okay, this game is in our control now. It was fantastic from Højbjerg. You know, that ball is played into Richarlison. I think he's fouled by Ndika. I don't think the referee actually played advantage, but I think we get the free kick there if Højbjerg doesn't pick up the ball. But he was so alert and alive to that second ball. He gets down the line, and my favorite thing about it is he doesn't just like stand it up to the back post and hope for the best. You know, before he puts that ball in, he takes a look. He sees Son in that space. Sessegnon makes a fantastic run in behind the right back to drag him out of position, to give Sonny that space. And it's an absolutely inch-perfect pick-out from Højbjerg. And the ball seemed to be in the air for what felt like an eternity. You know, like Sammy said, you expect Son to just swing and miss. There's so much running through your head as that ball is on its way to Son. But, oh, what a finish. What a strike. He's not right-footed. He's not left. He's two-footed in more of a way than I've ever seen a player for Spurs before. I know we probably all remember Santi Cazorla when he was at Arsenal taking free kicks and corners on both feet. But Sonny, it doesn't matter what foot it's on, he will put the ball in the back of the net. And you know, the technique was just so perfect. There was so much power on that ball, but he didn't swing uncontrollably. It's the fact that he just caught it so sweetly. Thank you very much. I appreciate the kind words. You know, he just caught it so sweetly, and it nestled brilliantly. There's no chance that the keeper is keeping that out. But it's a new dynamic to Højbjerg's game that we've started to see this season, and he did it in the Euros last summer a lot. I think he had the joint most assists in the group stage.
Well, I mean, even now, Matty, you know, 1 goal, 3 assists. I mean, what we do find with Højbjerg, if you agree, Matty, he does seem to be increasingly delivering in that final third now, isn't he?
Mm-hmm. He is, and do you know what? I put so much of that credit down to Bentancur, and I noticed it today. There was times when Højbjerg was kind of pressing on his own. He was getting annoyed. He was getting, you know, kind of animated with the team, saying, you know, come on and press with me. Never saw that before Bentancur was in the team, and that's not a criticism of Højbjerg. He was just a different player who did a very different job very well. But Bentancur, in the first couple of games he played, I always noticed that he was the one kind of stepping out of that line, and he was dragging Højbjerg up with him. And now it's just second nature for Højbjerg to do the same and getting involved. He's not a playmaker. He's not the man who's going to get you 10 goals and assists every single season. But he does have, at times when it really matters, that quality to pick out a good ball. And it's going to be priceless to us, again, having not signed an attacking midfielder in the summer, whether that was because we missed out on Maddison or whether it was by design and the way the window was planned by Karachi and Conte. But Højbjerg and Bentancur, 2 fantastic players. And just on the note of that midfield as well, those players, the 2 of them are at their best when you expect them to get a yellow card. When they're going into that expecting to be booked, expecting to be punished for something, they fly around the place. They fly into challenges. You know, they don't pull out of anything, and it adds such an extra bit of spice and an extra bit of control, I think, in that midfield that is absolutely priceless to this Spurs team. And the fact that Højbjerg at times is scapegoated hurts me physically, hurts me mentally, hurts me emotionally. He is absolutely exquisite.
Yeah, no, Matty, you know, I don't think I can disagree with any word you said there on Højbjerg. I mean, I don't think there's any argument so far this season. I can't believe that he wouldn't be everyone's player of the season at the moment. Again, I know obviously Kane has dug us out of situations so far this season, but Højbjerg, in terms of consistency, game after game, and I think, again, the biggest compliment I can pay for him is, look, you take him off the field tonight, look what happens to Tottenham in that last 15 minutes. We crumble. And again, it's about leaders on that field. It's about players that are willing to give everything. I think Højbjerg, as he said before, that what he maybe lacks in ability, he makes up for in absolutely 100% total commitment to the cause. I mean, there's even an argument, Daz, to come around to you, that when you take into the consideration, as Matty said there, you look at the, obviously, 3 assists, the goal he's provided in the last 4 games at the Spurs Stadium, does make you wonder when you watch that goal back tonight, if he could be the right wing back, because, you know, he's tried Lucas Moura there, he's tried Kulusevski there. This is all in jest, of course, but Højbjerg, do you agree at the moment, Darren, just improving game after game, week after week, and maybe now should get the appreciation that he deserves?
I've always been a massive fan of his, and I've always been one of those fans who said, I don't understand why people attack him. And you said there, Rick, about him not being the most gifted and most talented player, and people always use that as kind of the reason why they go at him. And I always ask the fan who says that, what player are you comparing him to? What do you want him to do? Because when you look at the machine that we're creating at Spurs, he does everything our machine needs. He is a box-to-box midfielder in terms of he breaks down play. He looks for that attacking pass. He wants to high press. He's dragging other players with him. He's a natural-born leader. There are so many great elements that he has as a player that you want in any team. And as you quite rightly said there, Rick, when he was taken off, the game changed. His influence completely affected the game. His leadership. He's a pointer. He's a leader. Mourinho mentioned him, saying, you don't realize how technically gifted this player is. You underrate his ability on the ball. And I think now we're seeing him because, as Matty quite rightly said, he's got a partner that he trusts. He's got a partner that he understands. He's got a partner that they've worked systems together. So he's no longer looking over his shoulder going, do I need to look after you? He's going, I can look after me because I know you've got you covered. And that's confidence. And that allows you to play football in the way you want to. And we're seeing that now. And that's why the transfers have been so good, because we've bought players that are married up, that work well. And I think he could be captain any day of the week. You put that armband on him, he's a natural born leader, and he is exactly what Spurs need in that spine. And I'm very, very glad he's in that Tottenham shirt. And anyone who isn't happy, find me on Insta, find me on social media, and I'll have words with you.
And he will most certainly. Look at that. He ain't messing around. The wonderful Darren Hartman there.
It might take him 20 minutes to get back with that connection, but he'll get back to you, don't worry.
Half hour tops. Give him half hour, will you? Someone give him half hour. You know what's funny? We nearly saw Spurs go and get a fourth. You know what I love is Daz is just even constantly laughing. They're cracking up. We just get the still images. Honestly, when Daz watches this back in the morning, it's going to be superb. He will love it when he watches it back in the morning.
It's going to kill me. I know. It's going to kill me. Rick, I'm glad you still got me, mate. I'm glad you're still happy I'm here.
Mate, I'm still happy here. Listen, can I just say the man is 2 hours ahead of us right now. For his own sanity, we have to look at the operating time of this show. Please, God, someone save him. We needed Spurs have a fourth guy actually before halftime. It was actually probably one of Spurs' best moves of the game, if not all season. It was Højbjerg to Son, who played at the Kane, to Sessegnon, but traps out with his left foot, his actual toe to deny Son what would have been a 23rd minute hat-trick and almost a 4-1 scoreline going into halftime. So, I mean, like I say, it was a really, really good ending to that first half from Spurs. So what we are going to do is we are just going to go for our next break of the show for our listeners on audio. For our watching audience here on YouTube, we've still got a good 600 to 700 across all of our platforms watching us live. Thank you so much for all your support, guys. You are joined by the wonderful Sammy Powell, the wonderful Matty Hayes, and the brilliant Darren Hartman, taking you through the journey of Spurs' Champions League group stage game against Eintracht Frankfurt. And we've got to squeeze in an Everton preview. And we're going to try and get you off and see you off before midnight. But listen, this will definitely apply to Darren, this next part, which he probably knows what's coming. That we are delighted to be sponsored by NordVPN. Now, if ever you need a reason to know what NordVPN needs or what we need for it, look at Darren Hartman's connection tonight. That's why you need NordVPN in your life. Nord, of course, they are a high-profile VPN. It gives you the opportunity for you, if you're away over in Europe, if you're traveling Spurs' Champions League journey, to be able to keep what you love to do on your phone, whether it's watching sport, TV. You can actually design and customize the actual app so you can be actually in the UK but not in the UK. It's a really, really good app that we've found works incredibly well. You also get discounts with the likes of Spotify, YouTube as well, but it's great to watch all sports. And we have got a discount right now, as I can see Darren frantically trying to get off this screen and try and load this on as well for himself. You can go to nordvpn.com/LWOS to get yourself a huge discount plus 4 months free. And it is completely risk-free with Nord's 30-day back money guarantee. And it's so good, I'll tell you, when you next see Darren Hartman, you'll see him in 4K. He's actually on the laptop now. Look at him. Isn't that a salesman at work? Look at that. He's got the laptop there. Even though the connection is as poor as that 15 minutes left of Spurs' game, he's going to find a way. And guys, we're going to dive into the second half of the game. Sam, let's come over to you, because we saw Richarlison very early on in that second half with some real great battling play down the right-hand side. Hit it across to Sessegnon, but the keeper made a really good save. We then subsequently saw Son send a powerful shot at an awkward height. That trap had to parry away. So Spurs were on the ascendancy, looking for the fourth goal of the game. And then again, more craziness in this game. Frankfurt reduced down to 10 men after Tuta was shown 2 yellow cards for fouls on Son in the space of a few minutes. And just absolutely bizarre moment there, Sam, from the defender, who just seemed to quite frankly lose his head.
Yeah, I mean, the game was madness, wasn't it, from start to finish, and more so at the back end of it. But I was baffled by the referee's hesitance to make a fast decision on that red. To be fair, but what I have to say is, we could have been very quickly. We could have been a couple of goals up if it wasn't for the Frankfurt keeper. Like I say, we pressed him really hard. Sonny had a phenomenal shot. He really caught the keeper off guard, and he still got to it. And it was lining up for a. It's almost though I was expecting the goal from Frankfurt at some point, because when Spurs are absolutely peppering people, it normally tends to go the other way. But that's probably just the Tottenham in me. But I'm sure I speak on behalf of a lot of other Tottenham fans. But yeah, do you know, again, I must admit, I think we started the second half really well. Regardless to being up, there's something that Antonio Conte is doing in a dressing room. He sees everything, doesn't he? He's clearly highlighting it. And I wouldn't be surprised that if there was an Amazon documentary where Mourinho likes to call everybody names under the sun and speak to people of the team, I wouldn't be surprised if he's giving a few individual tips to players individually. He changes what's going on. He makes sure you're calling things by watching it. If you're watching it on the TV or you're watching it in the stadium, you're saying he should be there, he should be doing that, this should be a little bit faster. They come on at half time and they do it. He's really getting his message across. It's mustard. And when you look at, just going back to what Manchester City have been achieving with the depth and what they can achieve, and people calling out Conte after the North London derby, look at the time that Pep's been there and had to look at that structure to make sure. Matt mentioned it impeccably before. He couldn't, and it was brilliant. I said he's looking for connections, and Conte's working out his connections. It doesn't happen overnight. You can't put two chefs in a kitchen and expect a creme brulee overnight. You need to know exactly what ingredients you have to put in to make that. Yep. And that's what he's doing. So I think the second half was a good start. It was just the end of it that was pretty nail biting for all of us.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like I say, it was just crazy there. As you said, the visiting defender fouled by Son in the 57th minute, then repeating the trick just 3 minutes later to get himself his sending off, which was, again, just crazy. I mean, if we're being honest with you, coming around to you, Matty, I mean, they should have really been down to 9 men, but the referee just didn't seem to have a clue and lost total control of that game in the space of 10 or 15 minutes. I mean, could you believe, Matt, they didn't get reduced down to 9 men at one point there, Matty?
Yeah, I can't for the life of me figure out what had happened, or how he didn't get it, because a couple of minutes before, 60 seconds before he makes that cynical foul on Sol, he leaves one in on Harry Kane, which in itself, if that's spotted by the referee, Hasabi could be off then. But then he commits that foul on Son, which is the exact same as the foul, like the exact same kind of premise as the foul by Tuta that got him sent off. And I know anyone who was at the ground who didn't really know what was going on. I think the referee forgot he had booked Tuta initially.
Totally
so he booked him he booked him for the foul on Son down in the corner.
Yeah.
And then he commits that foul again. He gets the 2 yellow cards out, books Son as well, which I'm not quite sure why. And you see a couple of the Tottenham players going over, and I think they've said, "Oh, that's a red card." And the ref kind of looks at him laughing as if, "Oh, nice try. There's whatever." And then he's kind of in his ear. He got out his book at one point. He started looking at it. He started counting. And it took about 60 seconds before he realised that Tuta has to be sent off. And then with the Hasabi one, Spurs again were calling for the red card, which would have been a second yellow. But it seems as though he thought we were calling for a straight red and said it's not a straight red because there's a covering defender. But it's the most cynical tactical foul you've ever seen. It's a blatant red card. And he just completely, in those 2 moments, he just completely lost his head. He did not know what was going on. He didn't understand the rules of football, which, to be honest, we've come to expect from referees. But look, if Hasabi had got that, it would have been a much easier end. So I think if the ref had given that yellow card, this might have been a bit of a more boring show. So we probably have to thank him that we have quite a lot to talk about. But it was a very, very strange moment, and one that I'm sure that referee won't be forgetting anytime soon.
Yeah. Darren, let's come around to you, mate. Daz, I know you might not be able to see the comments tonight. There's so much love for you here in the comments. I mean, like I say, it's always so much love for you when you're on Last Word on Spurs. And we actually saw, I mean, as Matty mentioned there, just crazy refereeing performance. And it was interesting because Spurs did go on to make a couple of substitutions in that second half. Skippy on for Richarlison, who looked actually really disappointed to leave the field. Basuma replacing Bentancur. I mean, it was actually curious that because Højbjerg was obviously still in that situation with 1 yellow card away from the 1-match ban in the Champions League. Spurs then reverted to a 3-5-2. Again, it was really surprising that Kane actually went down twice in quick succession, but remained on the pitch. I think people were really concerned, is Kane going to pick up an injury here? Again, they did seem to be targeting him in that second half. And eventually, there was actually a really good save from Lloris. We saw Lindstrom's effort cold. Really, like I say, a really good effort, which was palmed away from Hugo. Then subsequently, we saw Dyer get a little rest with Davinson Sanchez coming on his place. So it actually meant at that point, Kane, Son, Højbjerg all remained on. Then we had the double change. Lucas finally introduced along with Brian Hill. And we have to talk about the goal we conceded if we can, Daz, because again, I think what we're finding with Spurs is that we just do seem to be the masters of our own downfall. If you look at the goals we're conceding, they are all individual errors and they're not from really moments of brilliance from the opposition. This one comes from a really heavy touch from Emerson, giving the ball away. Hugo then spills it behind for the corner, which then Frankfurt score from. Are you concerned, Daz, by the way Spurs are, as we've said, almost inflicting these errors on themselves when it comes to conceding? Because you have to feel against the real top teams, the latter we get into this competition, how are we going to be able to survive based on these individual errors at the moment?
You know what? I'm going to spin it a different way. The way we're conceding goals are our own mistakes, but these are clear mistakes that can be changed and can be learnt from. If we were being outdone by worldies and play that we just have no way of responding to, then you go, look, what can we do? Nothing. But if that's continually happening, we've got a problem. Everything that I think Sammy mentioned, what Conte does is he's going to make them watch that back. That's going to be drilled and every mistake is going to be highlighted and analysed because he's not going to want those mistakes to become continuous. And I think that's where I'm going to take the positives. If it's our mistake, we can learn from this. This new Conte way is mistake, learn, improve. Do something well, continue doing it. And I think that's going to be drummed into us. So by the time we get to the big boys, sorry, Frankfurt, no disrespect, by the time we get into that part of the Champions League, I feel that we're going to be the mistakes, hopefully, the margin and the percentages will get smaller and we're going to be a force to be reckoned with. Listen, that's the way I've got to look at it because I don't want to look at those mistakes and go, we're now Spursy and we're going to keep them going. I'm going to say Conte is going to bring the revolution and he can get these out of the certain players that are making them because it is certain individuals that are making these mistakes. We can see who they are and it's the same scenario they're finding themselves in. Let's clean it out. Let's eradicate it. And it can be done. I believe in it.
Daz, I hope, I feel that positivity. I just hope, again, we do just see that, inevitably moving forward, because I think it is a concern, again, you look at the goals that we're conceding, if they're wonder goals, you take your hat off, you expect it. But at the same time, there is an element of concern. Again, that kind of reflects in a lot of the listener questions that we've had tonight. Sammy, let's come around to you. I mean, Brian Hill on the pitch, he went on almost like a Messi-esque run, which resulted into Sommerchich bringing him down in stoppage time, which led to then a penalty kick. But just to talk about that move, it was the most crazy because he lost the ball, won the ball, lost it, won the ball, does a little clever chop, and then went down and won the penalty. To be fair, if he stayed on his feet, Sam, it would have been an absolutely terrific goal. How impressed was you by his cameo, Sammy, Brian Hill?
He's a funny character, isn't he? I mean, you watch him play and you almost wish that you were 4-0 up so you could see a lot more of him and maybe he'd put another couple in for us. But he comes on. Matt touched on it before. How many times am I going to say that? But Matt said these players, you're not going to be able to judge them on these 10-minute cameos. What I will say about Brian Hill is he looks stronger than he did. And maybe that's down to the fitness coach. I don't know, but he's come back in the squad looking, God rest his soul. Maybe he's come back into the squad, seeing just what the other players are doing to be there. And it goes back to Conte. I almost sound like a broken record, but what has he done to get that out of him? He gave everything. He was up and down like a yo-yo. I didn't even know what was going on, to be honest. And he just kept getting up, going back for the ball. He was all over the place. But do you know what? Busy players are nuisances. And he was an absolute nuisance, wasn't he? If he wasn't going down, he was probably going to stick something in, And I loved it when the cross went in and he sort of threw. He couldn't get to it. He knew he couldn't get to it.
It was a bit harsh, wasn't it? I mean, I'd say, because it really actually, obviously we're going a bit further forward here, but we'll recap that part because, as you said there, Sam, it was actually a really good burst down the left-hand side by Kane.
Brilliant.
And it's just a shame that he's targeted the smallest player on the pitch in Hill. That it was almost like it sounds really bad me saying, watching like a 10, 12-year-old trying to head the ball. Bless him. Just what could he have done? It does the impression.
What could he have done? So he threw his whole body at it.
Quite literally.
In flight mode. He was maverick for a few seconds. He went Mach 5 towards the goal. He knew he wasn't going to get to. He knew he wasn't going to get it. But isn't that what you want to see? Do you know what I mean? You don't want to see them pulling out and thinking, I was never getting to that. You don't want to see Richarlison not running for the ball on the line like he did do last week and getting to it at last minute. Players are giving absolutely everything. Brian Hill, I must admit, there's something there, isn't there? I don't know.
Every time I've seen him, and Matty's nodding there is something. But it's one of those things. I don't know whether you agree, Matty, on Brian Hill. Do you think is it going to happen at Spurs? I agree with Sammy. There's something, but do you honestly think we're going to see what it is at Tottenham?
Not if we're going to keep loaning him back to Valencia. I think if it's going to happen for him at Tottenham, he needs to have more exposure to English football. Even if it's going down to the Championship, get him playing Millwall every other week. Let him learn what it's really about to play in English football. Because as fantastic as he is, there's no denying his style is better suited to Spanish football, maybe to French football, a bit to Italian football. I've been banging the drum since he came in. Even the first two performances when he was quite poor, there is a player in there, and I think a lot of Tottenham fans are looking at him playing poorly for us, maybe getting knocked off the ball a little too easily and completely dismissing his quality. You can't do that. He's an extremely talented footballer. He's still really young. I think a lot of frustration is coming from the fact that he cost us 35 million plus Lamela. But we're starting to see exactly what he can do now. And I said it a lot last season when he was getting his cameo roles in the Conference League, playing Pachas de Ferreira and Enes Mora, and then, I don't know, Darren's Wi-Fi password at some point as well. You can't fully judge him off that because he was playing, when he was playing, he was there in a midfield of Ndombele, Dele Alli and Lo Celso. He was playing with Japhet Tanganga at right back who doesn't really belong there. Everyone else around him were there because they were underperforming. Were there because they weren't good enough and weren't trusted to be in the first team. And you're not going to get the best out of a new player, a young player, and a acclimatizing player like Brian Hill when he's playing there. So now that he's, sorry, Jordan, now that he's actually getting into the team with these first team players, we're going to see a bit more of what he's made of. But I think we are still maybe a few years away from actually seeing the best of him at Spurs if it is going to happen.
I mean, Daz, just come around to you. I know you're going to offer some optimism here. Harry Kane. Someone like Harry Kane blazing over from the penalty spot. It's his second missed spot kick this season. It is a rare penalty bluff from Kane because he looks always so confident from the spot. Is that a one-off, Daz? I mean, you think he'll be as an always keen to take the next one whenever that comes along?
Oh, absolutely. He'll take the next 20. He's very happy to do that. And it was good to miss it now, and it didn't cost us anything because he can let it go. If Frankfurt has scored the third and it was a 3-3 draw, he'd be having nightmares about that penalty. But now we can let it go and be fine. Just on Brian Gill, just a little thing that I noticed. I don't know if anyone saw the training video of Eric Dyer putting in a horrid tackle on him. And everyone's like, oh, what's he doing? What's that about? And I believe, and this is a little theory I have, I think if he's going to stick around, like Matty said, he needs to get toughened up. And I think they're probably doing that to him at training. I think they're going in hard. I think Conte has said, if you're going to be here, let's go at him. Let's physically work him because we know he's got the skill, but the physicality of the English game is going to be where he has his downfall. Someone made a comment about him. He could be our Modric. Absolutely. There was lots of elements of his game that are fantastic. But if we're going to invest in it, he needs to stay here. He needs to learn about playing in the rain, in the mud, where defenders are ripping shreds out of your heels, and he needs to feel that and know that he can stick around. And if he does that, we could have a gem. If not, by the end of the summer, he'll be in another shirt and we would have lost him.
It's interesting, isn't it, with Brian Hill? There'll be that definitely kind of split opinion as to whether, if we're going to let him go, are we letting go a real gem? Or is the argument that we've just got him a little bit too early in his career? At the moment where Spurs want to win under Conte, can we afford to wait those extra couple of years to do so? It's a really interesting conundrum and one that I'd love to talk more about on Last Word on Spurs. But conscious that we are approaching nearly midnight and we've got to squeeze in an Everton preview and Daz is 2 hours ahead. And Sammy's got a baby that could wake up at any moment. And Matty's got an early start in the morning. So no pressure. But that's what we're up against here at Last Word on Spurs. We're just going to do a quick summary on player ratings quickly if we can. Hugo Lloris, to be fair to him, made a really important low save to ensure Frankfurt did not snatch a point late in that game. He did dive bravely at the feet of Eric Dyer's early on. Unlucky not to do more. But I think he'll be remembered, Hugo, for that wonderful save later on that second half. Let's start off you, actually, Matty. Matty, defence overall, Romero looks like he's getting back to his best. I mean, he crashed into the advertising hoardings at one point during that second half. Eric Dyer, listen, error for him tonight. We expect him to come back strong. Davinson Sanchez got a couple of minutes. Clement Longley, I thought, looked really composed in that back line for him. Emerson Royale, it's pretty much always the same story. Very little going forward, but defensively looked good at times. I'm going to try and be as fair as I can on Emerson Royale. And Ryan Sessegnon, again, industrious when going forward. I still believe does leave more to be desired. I mean, Matty, overall, defensive-wise, happy with the team?
Yeah, we look good. I mean, I've kind of got to the point where I accept for the majority of games that we're not going to keep a clean sheet, especially if we're going to be a bit more expansive, unlike the game against Brighton when we kind of just sat in there and we managed to get that clean sheet. But it was, aside from the Dyer error and like you mentioned earlier, where Lloris possibly could have done a little bit better, just palming that away from danger rather than into the feet of, it was Sebastian Rode who got the assist. We look good. Romero, like you said, he's back. He's flying into challenges. He's always Romero at his best, kind of the tail end of last season before he got injured. He's 3-4 seconds ahead of everybody, and he's making a move to intercept a pass before the attacker even knows he's going to make that pass. And that is absolutely priceless in every sense of the word. It's absolutely incredible, and that helps us avoid being pinned back a lot, because it could be easy to just stand off, let that ball be played. For example, it could have been Kamada when he steps in off the wing, but if you read that, you intercept it, it's fantastic. And Longley, his passing ability is brilliant. Like I mentioned earlier, those balls into Kane's feet. Emerson, I do think gets a lot of unfair slack sometimes. I think he's an easy scapegoat because he's probably the worst.
I don't think he's bad tonight, Matty. I thought he made some good tackles in the box tonight. I don't think he was terrible tonight.
I think he left a lot to be desired going forward.
Yeah, I mean, but have we not come to say that every time, Matty? It's almost like we're coming like we know that, right?
True, fair enough. Yeah, there was one challenge he put in towards the end of the game on the edge of the box that was, he put the challenge, like, oh, good challenge, Emerson. I was like, I've never said that before. How's this actually happening on the edge of his own box, flying into this tackle? But yeah, it was definitely not his best performance. I think if we had someone else at right wing back, we could score 2 or 3 more. But like you said, we probably just come to expect that. And Sessegnon, like I said, just industrious. Probably 6 or 7s all around. Yeah.
Quick round up on the midfield. Sammy, coming around to you. I mean, Bentancur, I want to say it's like a typical Bentancur performance, really, overall. Good, composed as usual, moved the ball well, as he always seems to do. Højbjerg, probably the standout of our midfielders tonight. I mean, the way he worked ever so hard for, obviously, Sonny's goal. And then, I mean, the biggest compliment I can pay both him and Bentancur is, look, take them off the pitch. Look how different we looked without them. I mean, that's really much the biggest compliment we can pay them because we did crumble without them. Oliver Skip came on. Again, looked a bit rusty tonight. That's probably understandable, though, given the lack of game time he's had. Basuma, I've got to be honest, there were some really, really poor passes from Basuma tonight. But, I mean, I guess, like I say, he's going to need games. There's more minutes in the bank for him. We expect him to come back stronger. Sam, overall, midfield, happy?
Well, yeah. I'm always happy, like I said, when I see Højbjerg and Bentancur there holding up the fort. And like you Bentancur, Ricky, you are you're his doppelganger, as we know. So, like you on the last word of Spurs, he always delivers. And you know what?
I'll pay you later for that.
Not a problem. It was the replacement for them. That's the difficult thing, isn't it? I think forward is great. We're still yet to find, if we take somebody off at the back, who we put on, who's our best back line. I don't think there's any question in midfield. I don't think there is. I do think, and I do think a Ward-Prowse or a Maddison would be a great playmaking assistant to Tottenham. Amazing. But again, we're not in that position of being held by one player anymore. Tottenham have had that for so many years. That if Gareth Bale's not playing, or if this player isn't playing, we have got depth. We just haven't got the depth. We're 80% there, and I think that's going to take time. Really happy with the midfield. Sometimes when I think when it's overcrowded, like Matt was mentioning, with the 5 through the centre. I'm really nervous with that because of the players' different skills. Some are playmakers, some are fast passers, some are long ballers, and some are wingers. And I don't think they need to play in that line of 5 across the centre. I'm not a massive fan of that. But when I see Bentancur and Højbjerg there in the midfield, I know that people have got some drama coming towards them, and I'm happy about that.
Let's come over to you, Daz, if we can. Forward-wise tonight, Richarlison really heavily involved in the build-up to Son's obviously opening goal. I've got to say, I don't think I've ever seen a forward work as hard as Richarlison in a Spurs shirt. He literally fights for everything. And, you know, you can understand why he was loved by Watford, Everton, because he's a player that when he's at your club, gives you absolutely everything. And you can understand why, as an opposition fan, maybe you can't stand him. But when he's your player, you absolutely adore him. Harry Kane. Kane, obviously, goal, assist. Listen, he plays that late penalty over. And then Sonny back to scoring, which we always want to see. And also Lucas Moura back in action for the first time since August, which is good to see. A couple of minutes for him. Overall, Daz, happy with the forwards tonight?
Very happy, very, very happy. Lots more goals still to come from them all. The relationship between the three of them is great. Kulusevski still to come into that. Seeing Moura get minutes under his belt was great again. Very, very happy with it today.
Superb. We are just going to go for our final break of the show for our listeners and audio. Taking into that break, you're going to hear from Baz from Toffee TV and from Matt Smith at the Blue Room. And that's the Blue Room of Everton. Nothing dodgy about that. The Blue Room now, the Blue Room podcast of Everton. And we're going to grab the boys for a final quick fire on Everton. It is simply predictions, and we're going straight back to the green room. Darren will be pleased here. Look, he's celebrating. It's been a listen, Darren Hartman, I think it's 2:00 in the morning there. For the man's sake of for his family and his life, please, let's get him wrapped up and send him back home, please, for his own family's well-being and our well-being, and Sammy's and Matty's too. Sam, let's start with you. Conte actually, after tonight's game, has revealed that Richarlison came off with a knee injury, but he hopes he will be fit to face his former side Everton on Saturday night. It's a real quick turnaround. He also confirmed that there's good news for us because Decky will probably be available, and now Lucas is back. So that's the positive team news ahead of Everton. Thoughts, Sam, for you, Everton? What have you made of him so far this season? And a prediction, please.
Kulusevski starts and we win, and that's that. You know, and I think watching Everton Manchester United, although there was a magnificent first goal, they are loose, and they are loose to fast breaking. Now, Man United were breaking very fast against Everton, but there ain't nobody breaking faster than Tottenham at the moment. That Conte ball that everybody's talking about is on fire. And when we get it right, we get it right. And I could see us doing Everton 3-0, if I'm being honest with you, Ricky, if they're playing the way that they were doing against Manchester United. Kulusevski, the complete difference for it. I'd even back him for a goal. In fact, I'm going to say that on record now. It's late. I'm probably a bit delirious. Probably had 2 hours sleep because I've got a brand new baby boy, and so I'm bordering on about 22 hours sleep in the last day.
Arriving in the Heartman there, aren't you? You're arriving in the Heartman for the timing.
Yeah, no, I'm 22 hours awake, by the way, not asleep. But the Kulusevski starts, we win. And potential goal from him. If not, he will be involved in it. He's the dream team player. He's just absolutely mustard. Keep repeating myself. He's the difference to every game. Okay,
a confident prediction there from Sammy. Matty, let's come to you. Been an absolute pleasure having you on for your Champions League Last Word on Spurs debut. I know lots of people love the analysis. Lots of new subscribers for you tonight, Matty. Everton, they failed to impress last time out in the Premier League. They lost to Manchester United. We understand Dominic Calvert-Lewin is going to be pushing for a start, while all of Townsend, Patterson, Mina and Godfrey remain in the recovery room. We know Mason Holgate is a major doubt, whilst Anthony Gordon is banned for the match. How do you see it going, Matty, for you, prediction-wise?
Yeah, I think it's one that we win, to be honest. Everton at times have looked a bit more solid this season and have looked better at the back. You know, I don't think we're in a situation where we're going to talk about them as potential relegation candidates like we were until the last couple of weeks of last season. I think they will be a bit more secure this season, but like I mentioned earlier, is at 9 wins in a row now, the Tottenham Stadium. It's become a fortress. Kulusevski back in there is going to be absolutely huge for Kane and Son, for Emerson. You know, he's not going to have as much of the onus going forward. Kulusevski, you give him the ball, he puts it on someone's head. It's as simple as that. No, I have another predictions video on another channel coming out tomorrow. I'm trying to remember what prediction I gave there, so I don't want to give a different prediction, and I'm not entirely sure.
No way, mate. Listen, it's late in the night, and no one will remember. You'll be fine. No one will remember.
Okay, 3-1
only the 700 watching you here, and the 25,000 that will listen to it when they come back in the morning. But you're absolutely fine.
Oh,
that is going for a 2-1.
3-1.
3-1 Spurs. 3-1 Spurs with Matty. Daz, it only feels right to close the show with you, bearing in mind we've opened the show with you and we've been with you for most of the night. Daz, please, prediction for the weekend, what are you going to go for?
I'm going to go for a solid 2-0 comfortable Spurs win. Happy days ahead. Yeah, I don't see it being a game where we're going to have too many issues. I feel it could be quite comfortable. And yeah, 2-0 happy days. And let's keep the wins coming. Let's make that home ground an absolute fortress. Let's sing loud, sing proud, bring home that win. Come on, you Spurs.
I love it. And as Alpish says there, it's the photo booth Heartman predictor. The photos are coming. There you go. You heard it from him first. Daz, thank you. Can I just say, Daz, thank you so much for tonight. We know it's been an awesome commitment. Thank you so much as always. Love having you on Last Word on Spurs. You're the regular for the Champions League. Thank you so much, Daz, for your time. Really appreciate it.
Absolute joy and pleasure. Apologies for those watching if I have ditched, but it's been a joy. Rick, thanks for having me as always. Love you always. Come on, you Spurs.
Please catch him out at the original Heartman. Make sure you catch out his stuff. Unbelievable. The wonderful Darren Hartman back on Last Word on Spurs. He is the Heartman. The wonderful Sammy Powell back with us. Sam, you're back with us on Saturday night, blessing us with twice a week in your presence, Sam. Where can we check out all your wonderful content?
Yeah, well, you could, if you really want to, you can follow me on Twitter at Sammy L Powell. But yeah, listen, as always, a top show. The people you bring on, Ricky, have fantastic. I think Matt, you're an absolute attribute, and tune into you regularly, mate. And you know you're in trouble when people are sending you condolences on air for being on with me. That's when you know you're up against it. But I speak the truth, and you know I love my club just like the rest of us. But an absolute pleasure being the last word on Spurs. And as always, Ricky, we'll keep on plugging on. Let's hope that we're still in good spirits on the weekend.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Lovely to have you back on Arsenal Spurs. Thank you so much. And Matty, thank you so much for making your Champions League debut with us. Been a pleasure. I think, Matt, you're back with us for next week. Just the simple task of Man United, Matty. Anything we're on about there?
No, not at all. I mean, look, I've been on for 2 post-game review shows. It was when we beat Arsenal at the end of last season. We won tonight, so I think it's inevitable that we beat Man United next week. I want to leave the viewers and listeners with a lovely little note from Alistair Gold. You mentioned Ricky Romero when he went crashing into the advertising board.
Yep.
Alistair Gold has said there was a small explosion in that advertising board. There's a smell of smoke around the ground for a couple of hours after that. So in the battle between Romero and the electronics, it was Romero who came out on top there, just like Tottenham came out on top. And always a pleasure being on with you guys. So I appreciate having you on, you having me on, and I look forward to being back next week.
Unbelievable. Matty, thank you so much. Listen, only right to leave it with Matty's comment there, from the wonderful Sammy Powell, from the brilliant Matty Hayes, from the superb Wi-Fi pending brilliant Darren Hartman. Guys, from all of us here, please keep safe, keep well, and as always, come on, you Spurs.